Hello.
Hey,
We did it. Oh my god. I'm eating. I'm sorry about that. So, can you can you introduce yourself and say hi,
hi.
and
Sure.
I'll finish.
So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Spencer Gibb. I am the lead and co-founder of the Spring Cloud Core projects that I started 9 years ago with the good Dr. Dave Steyer.
And no, no official relationship to the Bee Gees.
Probably somewhere way back, because
Okay. I mean,
my Gibb ancestors came from from Scotland and Northern England, so probably.
for those
But
of you who don't know,
nothing official yet. Nothing
no,
official that
but
I found.
even if you're not officially related to them, you're still a star in my eyes, my friend.
So one of them has a
There's only one of them
son
left, right? Like,
named Spencer.
but not you. Different Spencer Gibb.
He was born to Robin Gibb, and he's only a few years older than me. But he, on the platform formerly known as Twitter, is at Spencer Gibb.
Yeah, and I confuse him with you.
And I'm at
Too
Spencer
often.
B. Gibb. I think Mark Heckler at one point wished me happy birthday and tagged him. And he was like, I think you mean this up. That's not my birthday. And we had a nice conversation. He's a nice guy. He's a musician too, but super nice guy.
Yeah, and I've done that. I've made that mistake too. And yeah, turns out both Spencers, nice people. A little awkward about the fact that we're not great with names. Your fans, yeah, they're not great with names, faces, Twitter handles, and the like.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for joining me. Look, for those of you who don't know, I don't know, what like an hour ago, I was like, hey, Spencer, my dude, let's talk about Gateway. And you would think, given so little notice, that in this conversation he would be the one less prepared. But somehow, fates have conspired against me, and I find myself in a rather odd situation. I am I'm in Tokyo, right? So you know, as one does, there's like a gold. Oh, look at that! There's a Gold's Gym.
Yeah, I
Wow.
wondered what that was.
It's not an advertisement for Gold's Gym, but wow, that guy is like lifting a lot of WebSphere clusters. Look at those muscles. That is muscle right there. Anyway, so there's, yeah, I'm in Japan as one does, and you know, it's nice. But I was in my hotel when I prompted you. I'm like, hey, let's do a live stream, and the goal was to do it from my computer, which at that time had like 21% because I've been interleaving power on this USB-C cable. You know, I plug in the laptop or the iPad, depending on what I'm using. And I fell asleep last night with the iPad running, so I forgot to plug in the laptop. So I woke up and it had like 5%. I was like, okay, well, no big deal. I don't have to check out of this hotel, this cheap, wonderful little hotel I was staying in for the last couple of days, until noon. And it's only 11 o'clock now. It was 10 o'clock when I pinged you. I figured that'd be plenty of time. We'd begin at 10:30, and life would be fantastic. But anyway, it turns out checkout time in that hotel, unbeknownst to me, is 10 o'clock. So by the time you and I had the discussion about getting on this live stream, I was already 30 minutes in arrears, you know? So I got a very courteous, very polite, you know, GTFO phone call. Literally almost after I talked to you and set up scheduled the live stream. So I'm talking to you now on my iPad. What that means, Mr. Gibb, is I won't be able to write any code in today's thing, so it'll be incumbent upon you to lead us there if there's anywhere to be led. And you know, we don't have to have code. It's fine. It's going to be a podcast eventually. Nobody will be able to see it in the podcast. But in the video, on the live stream, maybe people will see it. Maybe people ask questions. And that works for me. Okay, so we got some nice good mornings. Did you see all those comments from all the nice people in the world?
Oh, I was
Where's
on the
everybody joining us
wrong
from?
tab.
Yeah, there are more than one. Where's everybody joining us from? I'm in Tokyo. Spencer, where are you from? Where are you staying? Where are you at right now?
Southeastern Michigan, where I've been for the last 7 years.
No way. 7 years. Oh man, that is.
This is
It's gone by too quick. It's too quick.
Officially the longest continuous single place of employment I've ever had.
Oh, well, the spring team, you've been on there for even longer than that, right? You said 9 years.
9 years, yeah.
It just goes by so quick. We've talked about this before. It's a conversation I'm sure the audience has probably got templatized in their head. Speaker A says, "Oh, I've been here for so long." Speaker B says, "Yeah, I can't believe it's been so long." Speaker A says, "Yeah, a long time." And then Speaker B says, "Hey, your last name is long." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, there's that." So anyway, 9 years. I remember when that happened. And look, it's you and I are you, Jurgen, and I are not completely unique, but we stand unto ourselves in that I don't know that many people who have been working for so long on a single thing, right? A single job scope.
Right, because
even among the spring team, they changed.
Dave's moved on to like 5 things in the meantime.
Yeah. Even exactly. And he was on batch for a good long time. Actually, I wonder if he was on batch as long as you've been on Spring Cloud. Who knows? Maybe in the distant future. Not today, not tomorrow, but in the distant future. Maybe your future is just floating from one amazing thing to another, just like the good Dr. Sai. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, I'm sure there are others. That can't be right. It can't just be you. I mean, how many people are there? Any people in the Spring Cloud team who have been on the team proper longer than you? No, that's not going to happen. I mean, when I say team, I mean Spring, just period.
Oh, in Spring, yes. Oh, yeah. I'm sure Rob has been on security longer.
That's true. No, I didn't mean. What I meant was, are there any people on the Spring Cloud team who have been on the Spring? Like, were they assigned to Spring Cloud?
So the core team,
sometime.
No. So that's myself, Ryan, Olga, and Marcin. Marcin's now part-time because he's also micrometer tracing and all that stuff, observability.
Yeah.
The broader Spring Cloud team, you got Glenn.
Oh, the whole data flow side, Spring Cloud stream, task.
Oleg, yeah. Oleg has got me for total years, right? He was there, came back, left and came back, yeah. Well, anyway, it's you and I are fairly. I mean, you're 9 years, and I just passed 13 years, and yep, I saw that.
But we are relatively junior on the team. That's I think what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people in the spring team that are just that hang on because they just it's too much fun,
Yep.
I just had a great metaphor for my experience in the spring team. So I was in Bali in Indonesia. Bali is like Indonesian Hawaii. It's amazing, right? A lot of fun, a lot of water sports. And so they have this thing called, what is it called? Disco boat, I think. I could be wrong, okay? But basically these lunatics strap you to a whirling boat. It's like a top. You get in the boat, you're strapped like this. Not even strapped, you're just holding on for dear life with your legs and hands tucked under the handles. And then the boat drives you around in such a way that the raft that you're on will spin like a top. And you're on this thing, 3 of you, my family and myself, my partner, kid, and myself. And it was exhilarating as can be, super fun. But of course, I pulled a muscle. That's the expensive part of the experience, Like, there's some enduring, not too pleasant pain for a day or two after, but the memory lingers and it's much more pleasant. That's how I would describe the spring team. It's the disco boat of my life, Mostly pleasant, 99.99% pleasant, but every now and then, some random expensive part. Okay, so my friend, look, the reason I wanted to talk to you is because, well, first of all, I'll see you in spring one. Yeah, that's in like a minute.
2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, stop it!
2 weeks from
Can't believe
yesterday, I fly in.
Yeah, okay. I'll see you very, very soon indeed. And I can't wait because I've missed you. And it's been way too long. But also, it's gonna be like, besides being our first in-person thing, our first in-person to do since the pandemic. Besides that, I think it's just never been a really. This year, as I've been fond of telling people, it's never been a better time to be a job developer ever. I think now people looking at Project Loom, looking at GraalVM and native images, looking at the developer tooling in Spring Boot 3.1 around test containers and Docker Compose, looking at the fantastic state of dev tools, just the plethora of different open source IDEs and free tools, and all these things make it so that your Spring Boot 3.1 experience is, if you want it to be, it could be night and day compared to even Spring Boot 2.7. You would not believe they are both people are using the same framework. The code looks the same, but everything else about it is so different. The opportunities, the speed, just the refreshing sort of velocity with which you can move, and part of that, of course, is Project Loom. I'm more than stoked about that, and I think I wrote a book on reactive programming, so I feel particularly invested in this topic, and yet I tell you, Loom it's really, really exciting. And I see that the Spring team, like always, we're always 10 steps ahead. So we've got Loom support planned, and I think people. I talked about we talk about preliminary Loom support. We'll swap out your virtual thread pools for you, in 3.2. That's coming in November, right? You can opt in to a virtual thread pool, and that seems nice, but that doesn't seem like a huge deal. But I think the real sweep of things is, hey, we got the REST client, we got the JDBC client, and now we've got the Spring MVC.
We have Tomcat,
Gateway.
We have Jetty.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I poked Aryan for the REST client. I was like, can we get this in? And because it might not have gone in, but so at least partially, for me poking at him helped. And I got, I was watching his dev branches on his, local repo and stuff like that as it went along, and trying things out.
Satisfying.
And he even made a couple changes for me for Gateway. So the client I use is REST client.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's great. And now you can do the HTTP service proxy factory with the REST client as well, instead of just the web client. So it's already being pervasively integrated. So okay. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, REST client. Why should I use it over the web client? What does any of this have to do with Loom? Am I making leaps into that?
I mean, yes, you get, a huge portion of the, all the non-blocking benefits of the reactive style. You don't get everything of the reactive style, but you do get
scalability.
You get a bunch of good things. I mean, in a servlet world, you can break free of the thread per request model, right? That's the, if you're in a Spring MVC app, that's the limiting factor, is the thread per request model, and you can now get around that with virtual threads. So that's awesome.
Right. Yeah, and that's so it's suddenly. So I look at all these requests. We've had these outstanding. People want a fluid builder style REST client instead of just the REST template, which is a template pattern style thing, right? And they've wanted a database client style fluid DSL for JDBC, not just a JDBC template. right?
Yep.
So we have that, and I think those things seem, it's not just a style of programming now, because now we don't have to have that horrible. I mean, I suppose with Java 17, the table's still required, but today there's no need for a table making the claim that you can use this if you want this in blocking I/O, but you suffer scalability drawbacks. But it's familiar. But it's just, you can have your cake and eat it too. You want scalability and this nice DSL.
For
Just
whatever big portion of the community will just get instant benefit from it.
Yeah.
So
Free. And so that brings me to my next question. Why undertake a project to build the gateway, which we famously heralded as being a really amazing use of reactive programming,
yep.
right? Because of streaming use cases and all this kind of stuff. And we even talked about how that gave us ubiquitous protocol support, like WebSockets was just basically drop in and etc. Why embark upon a project to build a
build
MVC?
the third one in Spring Cloud?
Yeah.
So we go back to Netflix open source, right?
Zool.
So yeah, in the early days we had Zool, and if you go look at the Zool 1 branch in GitHub, there's two ways to install it: a servlet or a servlet filter. But basically, if you get a list of filters, all the pre-filters iterate, execute, all the requests, like it's just some ifs and for loops. It's very, very simple.
You're talking about the Zool filter interface, or base class, not even interface, base class.
Like the framework of Zool was like this very, very basic class. And
so
all the filters we wrote. So the thing that was Spring Cloud, Netflix, Zool, all those things we wrote so that it actually did something.
So Zool had the worst interface I've ever. It was
return null.
Return null for no reason. It's public object. What is it? Execute or something like that. Run. I don't know. It's just this one template method. There's no parameters. So if you want to get the context, you have to use a static accessor method.
Yeah. Statics everywhere. Yeah.
Statics everywhere. It's just public object execute, and nobody knows what the object is for. No, as far as I've seen, every instance of the filter is just returning null.
Yeah.
It's a terrible design.
Yep.
And there's no concession to, I want to execute before the proxy and then after. It's just sort of figured out, I never liked that API. So when Spring Cloud Gateway came along,
if pre, that was a pre filter. If post, that was a post filter, right? Yep.
Yeah,
and then there was a request filter, I think, as well. So
yeah, cool. So
yep.
And then as you say, we had no interesting out of the box filters. I mean, I understand why. We talked about this. Netflix. They couldn't very well open source the proprietary like load balancing and rate limiting and all that stuff. That makes sense. I get it. They still did us a favor. It changed the world and taught us what we needed to have. But
yep. And then Spring Boot 2, Spring Framework 5.
2017 September.
Yeah, the team was building what is now known as WebFlux. It wasn't even known as that when I first started looking at it.
Right.
And I went to Defrag Con in Boulder, Colorado as an attendee, not as a speaker. The last one. I attended the last one.
Great show. Yeah.
And I got to sit and watch and think. Netflix had open sourced a snapshot of Zool 2. So I had access to the code and was looking at it and was like, oh man, this is going to suck too. Like I'm going to have to adapt this. I'm going to have to adapt, XYZ, PDQ, all these things. I'm going to have to adapt to fit.
Yeah.
Even worse than Zool 1 because they were doing everything on top of RxNetty.
Oh. So close but so far.
Yeah, so I was like, I wonder. I took snapshots of framework and threw together a proof of concept, basically a single filter, a predicate, a filter, making a request. And I was like, okay, it works. I can do this. So I wrote, I think, a page and a half or something, sent it to Dave, Brian Dussault, maybe you? I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
think we.
There were a handful of people, and I was like, I don't think we should wait for Zool 2. I think we should build our own. We can do lots of things better. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, really? That's it? Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously some things. It was WebFlux, right? So Zool, Servlet, MVC, Gateway, WebFlux. And not only
Wait, no. So there's what you just described is actually two different things, even though it sounds like five. There's one thing which is Zool, which is based on the Servlet API,
yes.
and then there's another thing which is Gateway, which is based
Spring Cloud
on
Gateway,
WebFlux, and Reactive.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so, I mean, lots of cool things. There's a whole commercial product, two commercial products built around it, right? It's popular. It pops up all the time, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know it was used there, kind of thing.
The Tinder, isn't that?
Yeah.
Didn't we
that
see
was the big one recently. Yeah.
Huge. That's great. You know, I mean, and for everyone that publishes a blog, there's 10 that don't. You know.
Right.
But,
Right.
I'm still using it. I do it in every one of my demos. It's just such a satisfying, like, eye-opening moment to realize, oh, you can do that. But like one little bean definition, and I have a proxy now.
And so I remember I flew to San Francisco to sit next to Ben Hale and Stefan Maldini, and we sat for days to figure out some of the more complicated things, right? And anyway, so it's a whole thing. So early on in Gateway, I recognized we've lost some of the users because they're, for whatever reason, have to use Spring MVC.
Yeah.
So I wrote issue 36 in Spring Cloud Gateway, a servlet version.
Yeah.
And for years, it was just there. And then, of course, you mentioned this. We're now back to in person. We were supposed to be in person in San Francisco, December. But we had our team still flew to San Francisco and had our team meeting. And when I looked at issue 36, and it had more upvotes than any other Spring Cloud issue I have ever seen. And we had done things for far fewer upvotes than that. Obviously not a small undertaking. So then the other thing is we have Loom that has been in preview for a couple of versions of Java, right? 19 and 20. Right. And it wasn't, so I think we went, okay, if we can do this, let's put this on our roadmap. Let's make it a priority. And I think it was maybe just a month or two later that they said, okay, virtual threads, Java 21, out of preview. So we all kind of went, oh, so this really makes a lot of sense now, right? Because that's that's the limiting factor of MVC is now gone.
This is one of those things where Spring has a great idea, and it just seems like the JDK wants. It's like the JDK sometimes gives Spring a pat in the back, right? So the other example of that was the all those callback interfaces in Spring, often using template objects, suddenly being compatible with lambdas, single abstract methods. And it's like we didn't design this 10 years prior with that in mind.
But it happened to work.
Yeah. It just works really well.
So I was like, no. So now it's like, okay, well, this is feature one, right? Like, this is the Spring Cloud feature that we're gonna announce. Obviously, it was an open issue. It got put on our backlog. I started building it. And one of the things that I talk about in my talk. So So Spring Cloud Gateway was built using the plumbing that Spring Framework and Spring Boot gave me, right? So Gateway is essentially a sibling to like @controller.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it has its own handler mapping and plugs in, and it has its own filter chain. It doesn't. It patterned off of things there, but it's just a sibling. It sits next to those things. So it uses the plumbing. And of course that means there's a lot in Spring Cloud Gateway for maintainers there's a lot going on.
Right.
It was also built config first. That
Right.
makes sense? And
Yeah, I remember.
You helped me with the DSL, yeah. But that was a secondary feature that came later. So some of my goals were to flip that script. I wanted to be DSL first and make it, if possible, to be somewhat compatible with the same gateway style configuration. So, Aryan on the Spring Framework team, he created. So when they did WebFlux, they did a functional version, not just the annotation version of WebFlux, right? They had webflux.fn. Shortly after, they did a MVC.fn as well.
This is the Sinatra or Spark Java or Scalatra or Express.js style. You register a callback with some predicates that match the incoming request, and it was supported first in reactive and now also in Spring MVC servlet style applications.
Yeah. So I mean, literally, the function is takes a server request, returns a server response. Right. That's
easy.
About as simple as you can get.
Yep. And their function.
Because with the annotation version, there's all sorts of optional parameters that you can throw in, optional things. You can return all sorts of different stuff, and so it's much more flexible that way. So anyway, I was like, I want to see if I can reuse that. So where WebFlux Gateway uses the plumbing, the MVC Gateway uses the porcelain.
Okay.
If that makes sense, right? So I'm using a different layer of Spring Framework. In WebFlux Gateway, it's lower level, and here I'm building it on top of MVC.fn. Wow. So the predicates, get, path, header, those work as is. You can use them in the DSL for Gateway.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, well there's a good start there. I already have those things. I already know what they look like. So now I need a handler function, right? This is in that Sinatra style. This is where you do your work, you build the response and send it back. Well, my work is make another HTTP request somewhere else. So one of the other things that I wanted to be, one of my goals for this was to be more explicit, so there's a little less, I guess you call it magic, right? There's a little more, with Gateway, there's all sorts of global filters that do little things based on either, the scheme of the URI or attributes in the requests, things like that they kind of hop in and do their little job, and you go on your way. Well, with this, I wanted to be more explicit and not have that issue. So when you're building a request, a route in the MVC style, there's actually, we have, if you're familiar, so in MVC.fn as well as Webflux.fn, there are some classes that have some static methods that you can import to start building the Java DSL. And so I have in the new MVC Gateway, there are some additional classes that have similar methods that you can import. So one of them is HTTP is a method. It's a handler function. So you make your MVC.fn router function, and the handler method is gateway HTTP method. And it's got it already has the notion of filters.
Okay.
So I didn't have to rebuild that.
I noticed that you tease them out into like pre and post, as opposed to just the one web MVC filter or the.
Yeah. So there's filter is the general version, right? But even in the MVC.fn DSL, there is a dot before and a dot after method. And so those take slightly different signatures that force you, like for before it's a function that takes a request, returns a request. You don't have access to the response because it's before. But then you can adapt it. So there's also another place where I adapt all those so that if you want, you can use the filters signature as well as before and after. So you can use it either place. Now there are filters that are wrapping filter. They are filters. They can't be a before. They can't be a post because they do both. So
now this is not a regular JavaX or Jakarta servlet filter, right? This is a new filter interface specific to Spring. Okay.
Yes. Yep. It's part of the Spring MVC.fn API.
Yep.
Right. So I started to build things, and predicates are fairly easy, right? Basically, you match things, and like I said, I didn't have to build a lot of them because all the basic ones were already there, right?
Right.
So I think the first kind of more complex one I did was host.
Right.
Which, like when I was doing it, it's like, why doesn't this work? Well, it turns out, URL connection, which is the default HTTP client for REST template doesn't support by default sending the host header. And so anyway, so right now the new gateway uses REST client as the HTTP client and the JDK HTTP client as the implementation that REST client uses.
So no URL connection anywhere in the stack.
Right. By default. You can change it, and it allows you to change it. But, So
we're saying that this project is definitely a Spring Boot 3.2 project, right? Like this is not going to work on 2.7.
Nope.
And you could use it with Java 17, but you're missing out if you're not using Loom in Java 21. Coming out next month, by the way, like a month, people. Set your watches.
It's actually built with Java 17.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing specific to Java 17. The boot stuff and framework stuff has some Java 21 specific things, but there's nothing requiring it. So you could certainly use it with Java 17, but you'd obviously lose. And so it was interesting. Like when I went, so I had a big checklist of things that I wanted to make sure I did, right? And I was kind of doing them in kind of priority order, and I got to the point I was like, I need to make sure post works. Right? That's important. Post?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyone post? Anyone? So I was like, I wrote a test, and of course it didn't work, and I was like, oh, what am I missing? I wasn't actually, everything up until then had been a Git, so there's no bodies. I wasn't actually copying the body anywhere. I was like, oh no, what is, it was single line of code.
Oh no.
Yes. Now, if you've
was it just
you've probably gone and looked in I use one of Spring Framework's stream utils copy.
Right. Yeah.
Pass in an input stream and an output stream, and the same thing on the body on the back end. Same thing, single line.
Right.
So then I was like, okay, this makes me excited, because then I was like, as I got to filters, right, where it's a
Right.
little more like, okay, like what did I do first? I can't remember which one. Anyway, but things like retry or circuit breaker or load balancing, like
Right.
they were all pretty easy. Like not very long, easier than simpler. Easier is another wrong word. Simpler than the reactive version, because I don't have to deal with the reactive chain.
Right.
And so things were a little more straightforward to code for
So
all those things and to get them to work.
So did you get through? I mean, well, first of all, you benefit from having done it once before, right?
I already had a filter I could go look at and
Yeah.
basically copy its tests over. So yeah, so this is my third time building an API gateway. Who can say that?
No, not sane people. Regular people don't say that.
No.
This is why we keep you on the Rolodex, as you've done it. You're a sick man, but I appreciate you. Like, I want to use this. So is this going to be like in a milestone or snapshot? Or I mean, I suppose it's already in snapshot.
It's in snapshots. Been in snapshots since May, and I think so Spring Boot just did their first milestone like a couple of weeks ago, right?
Right. Yeah.
So their M1. It's like Spring Framework is on M2, right? I think. And
I don't know if it's come out yet, but I know a certain name. M1
well, no, whatever boot used. So I'm pretty sure it was
Right.
M2. And our M1 is this week. So we'll be releasing this as a milestone this week.
So that means
Before
I
Spring
could use this. That means I could use this as a part of my demo, because I do this demo every time I do the demo. It's Loom friendly servlet stuff in the first half, and then I switch over to the reactive gateway stuff and declarative HTTP clients and GraphQL, and there, it's nice. The only time I really need the reactive stuff is when I use GraphQL and I want to do something concurrently. But I think I could probably get the same effect for that one little section of the demo just by using actually, no, I couldn't. I would need the reactive types there. But anyway, yeah, I could switch that. But everything else, the reactive stuff I use for GraphQL for the gateway, it's just sort of presumed you need it there. And for the declarative interface clients, you can now use the REST client, which is not reactive, as a web client adapter.
Yep.
So it's just looking really good.
Yep.
I can go. I could unironically and without any shame go full servlet in my demo soon, and still claim to be getting, acceptable scale. So that's a rare thing. It's been 22 years in the making, but this happened. So okay, Spring One, you're going to be there.
Yep.
You're sporting the gray beard these days. That's how people can find you. You're the young man with the
So
old man beard.
my talk is day one, slot one, right after the keynote.
Yeah. Oh, so that I know where I'm going. It's gonna be great.
And then I was just literally looking at the schedule because I found a map, and so I was like, I want to see where people are. Where do I go? And then we also have to meet the experts.
Oh yeah.
For the Spring Cloud team. Let's see, they're Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe. And then I signed up for a Spring expert at the booth somewhere Monday.
You're gonna be at the booth?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna come and ask questions. I have so many. That's gonna be great. Friends. Look right now. We managed to get Spencer Gibb, not related to the Bee Gees, on the show. And he's answering our questions, and he's doing it again. at Spring One. That's why you go to Spring One, is you get, face-to-face time with a legend. Amazing.
Most of my team will be there.
Wow.
Ryan and Olga, and then from the broader Spring Cloud, Glenn will be there. Oleg will be there.
I cannot think of two more different people.
Sobi will be there. Yeah.
I love both Oleg and Glenn, but
They are
me two.
Yeah, different people. Yeah, and I'm happy that I get to meet with them both regularly.
Yep.
So.
Me too. Oh man, that's so good. Spring One. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see you. It's been forever. People can come see your talk. Yours is going to be the very first one after the keynote. So that's where I would go. Spring Cloud. I mean, I suppose there's, just what's happening with the like Spring Cloud OpenFeign and the Spring Cloud Square retrofit. As you know, I care about the declarative client world.
So put OpenFeign in the same bucket as REST template.
Supported, but not required.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So anything new will go into the interface clients in Framework and Boot.
Okay.
So
makes sense. Yeah. Perfectly valid.
Yep.
Are there asymmetries? Are there things for which OpenFeign is still uniquely useful?
Yeah, there are a lot more edge cases, definitely. Right? Like there are lots of little things that people will find that probably won't be identical going forward. So that was another thing. So going back to Gateway, like non-goal to be like compatible with Webflux Gateway.
Right.
So obviously the API is not. I literally tried to implement Server Web Exchange, and it's like you basically have to like implement the whole thing. Like you can't build a layer over it. You have to build Webflux again.
Oh no.
So it's like, no, not gonna happen. But I did get configuration compatibility and refresh, so you can add. So one of the things I added is there's a little quirk with Spring Boot external configuration. If you have a list you have the same list in multiple configuration sources,
Right.
property sources. You can't combine the lists, right? But you can with a map.
Wait, say that again? You've got configuration sources.
So if you have a list, you have a configuration property that is a list. For example, the gateway routes property is a list, right?
Okay. So Spring Boot configuration properties no act constructor binding. You've got a record. One of the properties is a list of T. Okay.
Yes. Given multiple property sources, you can't combine that list from multiple property sources.
But if you have multiple keys in a map, you can. So you can say
you can
this
combine
record.
a map, and so that's one of the things people have been asking. And so one of the things I added in this was the ability to use both a map and a list, and so you can use that. So I did get configuration file that looks very, very similar, works pretty similar. You can refresh and add routes and all that stuff via config. So if you're using config server or console or whatever, you can automatically load routes from the config file. So that was kind of fun. That was probably the hardest thing I did, was getting the config file working, because
that's the DSL.
Well, in Webflux,
right,
everything is a bean to begin with. You have all these factories, predicate factories, filter factories, and those are all beans already. So I could just look things up in the context and do things, which was kind of where it's a little more complex. Well, with this, I have static methods on a class.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? Well, everything eventually becomes a bean.
Right.
And so I have I think I have a bean definition post-processor in there somewhere and a bean post-processor in there. So after,
okay.
yeah.
So you
that's
find the
how I
beans
do it.
before they're put into service.
Yep.
And then what?
That's how the configuration file is loaded, and I create bean definitions. I create
Programmatically
a router function from the DSL.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, that's amazing. So wait, if you're using, I thought you couldn't read the bean state at the bean definition level.
I create a bean. I don't do anything with other beans. I just create one.
But you're able to read the existing state of the objects that are created by the DSL for Gateway?
No, because the way router functions work, it just gets a list of them. Every router function that's in the context just is there. So I just have to create another router function bean.
I see.
I don't care.
So, right.
The ones from the DSL you can create N of them, right? Not just one.
Yeah. They're all, whether it's from the functional
yes.
MVC model or from the gateway or from controllers.
Yes.
It's all the same thing. Okay.
In fact, it takes them all and it reduces them to a single router function bean. Or a single router function, not a router function bean. The handler actually only has one router function.
Which does a big, massive strategy pattern lookup for the right predicate.
Well, so that's a new thing that you can do in this is nested routes, because that's part of the DSL.
You can do that in reactive, in the classic gateway.
No. So the routes are flat if you're doing them by path. So this actually will short circuit the request predicate lookup. So if you have something that's /foo, you can say /foo and then nest all your other predicates, all your other routes under that. And so if you have large number of routes that have common paths, you can nest them.
So cool. This is we get cool stuff for free.
Yeah, the rate limiter is not the Stripe Redis Lua. It is bucket for J.
Redis Lua. Okay, so bucket for J. I thought you were using that. You were using a bucket algorithm, but you weren't using
token bucket.
J.
Yeah.
Token bucket algorithm. Okay.
Yeah, that was implemented by Stripe via Lua, a Lua script in Redis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so now bucket for J has a bunch of different distributed mechanisms, and so it's not like I just let bucket for J handle all that, and it's way simpler.
And so can I use other things besides Redis for?
Oh yeah. So there's, let's see, what you can use. Bucket for J.
I mean, I like Redis. It's cheap enough to deploy, but
so like the commercial team, I think uses Hazelcast.
Yeah.
For J. So there are, let's see, we can use anything that is JCache compatible. So Hazelcast, Apache Ignite, InfiniSpan, Oracle Coherence. Obviously Redis with 3 different clients. MySQL, PostgreSQL, DynamoDB. You can also do just Caffeine, for a local cache.
Caffeine is amazing.
Yep. In fact, that's what I use in my tests is Caffeine.
Yeah. Super nice.
Yep. So super nice that I don't have to, someone else can handle all those, which is nice.
Okay.
Spring retry for retry.
Oh yeah. Well, because again, you don't have to deal with reactive. So much of the old stack just works again.
Yep.
That's nice. Okay, so I think I can answer half this question. The question is, what are the pros and cons? Why would I use this new gateway? And I will start the ball rolling. I can say, if you're starting a brand new project, it makes sense and you're on the servlet stack and you're not planning on going active. This makes a lot of sense. If you're already on mostly serverless stack, but you want to homogenize your infrastructure and you plan on being on Loom, this makes a lot of sense.
Did I lose you? So am I still here and Josh is not? So he was basically writing my slides for my talk. Yeah, if you're oh, here he comes back.
Hello.
You're back.
All right. Oh, did I mention I'm in a Starbucks?
Yeah.
So in Tokyo, see that guy? That guy's got all the WebSphere clusters.
So I started to say you're writing my slides. That's what I already have.
So what did I miss? I mean, are there any extra pros, and then are there any cons? Why wouldn't I use this new fangled bit of awesomeness?
Yeah. So basically, there's a support thing, right? If you're a lot of people are enterprise, MVC, enterprise Tomcat, right? Like, so they're that way. There's embedded use case that this brings back, right? We used to be able to embed Zool in an MVC app and have like an embedded gateway that eliminated CORS problems and all that jazz.
Right.
Just the simplicity. If you want to write filters and predicates that aren't standard, but you want to write them, it's much simpler to do.
Right.
Like, so still reading the body makes a memory limit, right? You're now memory constrained. But man, was it way easier to do than Gateway.
Oh, because it's not streaming anymore.
Well, even then, but it's just dealing with a flux of data buffer as opposed to an input stream or output stream.
Right.
Right. Is there so much simpler.
No, I mean, I'm saying you're memory constrained in that input streams are finite, whereas WebFlexes can be infinite.
Yep. So one of my goals or non-goals is performance parity, right? I haven't done any comparisons at all, but that's like I don't want to like at least initially say, hey, this is going to be as performant as the WebFlex version is.
Right.
Right.
Well, I don't know. So for me, it's not so much about how many requests I can handle per second. Sorry, it's not so much about how many, how long it takes to complete a request as how many requests I can handle per second. That's what I care about. Is the latter, and the scalability.
I mean, for the most part, that's a function of the underlying container, right?
Mm-hmm.
React for Netty versus Tomcat on Loom, right? So So I'm not gonna start there. I'm sure it'll happen, and we'll get comparisons and things. But yeah.
Does this work with? Is it just Tomcat, or does it work with Jetty or Undertow, or what's our story?
So I believe I read somewhere that as of the last time I read, the two containers that support virtual threads are Tomcat and Jetty.
Nice.
So,
cool.
And it's a single property. It's opt-in. You have to set a property.
Yep.
But once you do, that's it. So.
I love it. It's amazing. The Spring Boot 3.2 is coming out in November. People can get the bits. We encourage them. This is in my estimation, in the way that 3.0 set the stage for a whole new generation of Spring, and arguably the most important release of Spring in its 20-odd plus year history. I think Java 21 is Java's most important single release. And people might quibble with that. They might say Java 5 with generics, Java 8 with lambdas. But
those were
Loom
language features.
Exactly.
And we've had, now we get language features every 6 months, right? So
yeah,
this is a huge runtime shift. Huge.
And it's free. Shift. Huge. You just upgrade. And so I keep thinking about the day I get to use Project Loom in a GraalVM native image. I mean, why would I use Go? Seriously, what is the attraction at that point? Go is a nice language. The reason it's nice is because you have Go routines and you have a unified approach to non-blocking I/O, so that you don't have the colored functions problem, and you have these nice small statically linked binaries, which we now have. I just don't. I mean, and then it's going to get better. Obviously, the Project Panama and the Vector JEP and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all that stuff is like, and I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where Java is the premier destination for machine learning and AI and all that. Certainly not at this cadence, but like these APIs do promise some incredible performance for low-level bit twiddling kind of stuff as well.
Yep.
You could we could implement like a NumPy, Num Spring, Spring Num. I don't know, whatever. We're not doing it, by the way. Don't anybody get any ideas. I'm just saying, with those APIs, amazing things are possible. Those are years away. So I'm just dreaming. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, it's a good time. This is going to be a great year. I can't wait to see you. Can't wait to see Java 21 and Spring Boot 3.2 by the end of this year.
And Framework 6.1 is pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
The checkpoint restore stuff, the
now,
REST client, JDBC client.
We don't know if there's going to be any checkpoint and restore stuff. There might or might not be. We cannot commit to anything there. This is not a forward-looking statement by anybody. We don't even know where we work or what we're doing half the time.
I think that's the boot side, is we don't know what's going to happen there. But the little bit, there's a fairly small commit in Framework to get official support. So.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, won't we? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Thank you, Spencer. You're awesome as always. Where can people find you on the internet if you want to be found?
Oh, all sorts of places. At Spencer B. Gibb on the platform formerly known as Twitter.
So SPENCERB as in B, and then GIBB.
Yep.
Okay.
Spencer Gibb on GitHub.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other one's not a.
Those have links to other places. Yeah. Threads, Mastodon, Blue Sky, whatever. I'm around.
These things are all going to take off. Just wait. Let's just all hold our breaths.
Well, it sucks because, like, I don't have as many followers as you do, but I don't have like 10. It's
you've got a following, of course. Nobody wants to abandon a community that they've cultivated over so many decades. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But on the other hand,
I know.
They're leaving. I feel like people are leaving too. So it's, I don't know. I'm going down with the ship, but not happily.
I'll join.
I'll be the last rat. Yeah, exactly. My friend, I've got to go catch a 1-hour train ride to the airport so I can catch a 10-hour flight back home. And it's late in the night for you, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, it's still not Tuesday for me.
Yeah. It's lunchtime Tuesday in my time, for reference.
And you'll get home Tuesday morning.
Yeah, my flight's at 5:00 p.m. in the afternoon, in the almost early evening, and I will land in San Francisco at 10 a.m. San Francisco time. Same day. I'll leave at 5 in the afternoon and arrive the same day.
That's awesome.
7 hours earlier. Yeah, it's pretty dope. I'm pretty happy. Thank you, my friend. Thanks,
no problem.
everyone else.
See you soon.
See you soon. Bye. Oh, by the way, everybody, check out spring1.io/history of spring. I forgot about that. Wait, I forgot about that. That is so you've seen it, of course, but I don't know if they have. This is another thing that if you're on the Twitters and you're following me there, then I'm sorry. But also, you would have seen this. Spring1.io. There. Go there now. It's great. Trust me, you will not be surprised. You will not be disappointed. Go there on a computer with a keyboard, with a right arrow and a left arrow. Okay? Bye, everybody. Bye. Bye. Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.